Okay, so here I am coming to you live from my backyard for the Making a Connection video. I'm going to pull the Making a Connection video that is there because it was there for the last time I taught this class, and I'm going to put this one in right now as an update because I try to make these Making a Connection videos to connect with you all each time I teach these classes, and I try to make these videos about every other week. So we've already went through week 1, and here we are in week 2, and here is my Making a Connection video for week 2. So don't be surprised if the video you saw before is replaced by this video here. One of the things I did not do is upload an intro video, which is something I asked you all to do in the Moodle for this class. And I figured I'd take this opportunity to kind of do that right now, but kind of from a teacher's perspective instead. So my first question is going to be, what do you teach at FPU? Currently, as an adjunct in the DC program, I teach Jesus in the Christian Community and Biblical Perspectives. But in the past, I've taught writing classes, philosophy classes, and I even did a history class, medieval and early modern civilizations. But right now, I'm really in my field. Theology is what I love, and so I'm teaching, again, Jesus and the Christian Community and Biblical Perspectives. About my family, I have one wife, 4 kids. My mom is currently living with us, and I have a little dog named Sierra. And all my kids speak Spanish. They went through the dual immersion program. By the time they were done with 6th grade, they were all conversant in the Spanish language. And so I have the Spanish surname, Velez, and all my kids speak Spanish, and I, un poco, very little Spanish. So if they want to, they could have a conversation in Spanish, and I really can't follow along. So they could alienate their dad if they want to. Okay, what else? Tell us anything you like about your work life. Well, primarily, this is my work life, being an adjunct at Fresno Pacific University. But I will say pretty soon my church life and my work life are going to come together because I'm currently in the process of ordination. And within the year, I'd say, I'm going to be ordained as a priest in the Anglican Church. So at some point, you could call me Father Anthony or Father Antonio. Let me see. What else do I want to say? Another question. Tell us anything you'd like about a life dream or goal that you have. Well, currently my church is looking for a church, or a building that is, and if I had my way, we would be downtown. I love the downtown area. I love the renewal that I see going down there. We have artists in our church and musicians, and so I think we'd fit in them well. And I don't know. I guess that would be one of the dreams, is to have our church actually be located downtown. Outside of that, at some point I'd like to write a book. I've been saying that for a long time, so I don't know how serious I am, but it sounds good. I want to write a book. And I'd like to do an open mic, get some friends together, our instruments, do a few original songs, be kind of fun. Something interesting or fun to know about you, a fun fact. I play guitar. You might have guessed that. Insofar as I just said I want to do an open mic, well, my contribution to what little ensemble I put together would be I would play the guitar. Actually, I could probably play just about any stringed instrument. Once you put it in my hand, I just tool around with it a little bit and I can figure it out. But guitar really is my forte. And another interesting historical fact, I'm related to the man who performed the wedding ceremony for Abraham Lincoln. So I have some history in my blood. Actually, now that I think about it, we all have history in our blood. But anyways, that's my fun fact. Play the guitar, and related to the man who married Abraham Lincoln. Now I want to do some various stuff, kind of logistical stuff for this class. The first one is I'm going to be interacting with you on those forums. So you post those forums, I wait for you all to post your posts in those forums. I read them all, and then I post my own post in those forums. And then I take that post and I also send it to you as an email. And the reason why I do this is I use those posts as an avenue to extend my instruction into your lives. So please don't consider it as optional. If I send you this email, I would really like you to read them because, again, this is one of the ways that I educate you in this class. I know you have a lot of stuff to do, and this seems like just one more thing. But, it's a pretty intense class. You're really getting 16 weeks of work in 6 weeks. And I think what I'm sending to you in these emails are helpful as far as giving perspective and information that will better prepare you and enable you to successfully navigate the ideas that we want you to lay a hold of in this class. So keep an eye out for those forthcoming emails and posts in the forums. And another logistical issue is regarding grading. I usually wait for you to finish a week before I start grading that week. So last week you just finished week 1. I just started grading week 1. Pretty soon you're going to see those grades showing up in your grade books. Generally speaking, it's 5 points for each forum that you contribute to, provided that you meet the criteria for those forums. I might deduct points to whatever degree you don't meet that criteria. And then, of course, whatever major assignments that you have. There wasn't actually any major assignments except for that, who do I say Jesus' reflection. So this week will be pretty easy grading for me, as it is pretty easy. Week 1 was pretty easy for you to get through. A lot of busy work perhaps, but not too much. Now we are in week 2, and one of the things I like to do is provide a kind of overview or connecting thread for each week's assignments. So you may have noticed at this point, by looking at the syllabus, that there are 3 major worksheets that you have to get through. One on Jesus' baptism, the other one on his temptation, and the other one about his wonder and mighty deeds. And what I'd like to say about those 3 items, those 3 worksheets, is that there's a connecting thread that puts them all together. And the connecting thread is Jesus's identification with humanity. So when I say that, one of the things I'm reminded of is an early church father. His name was Irenaeus, who developed this doctrine of the atonement. And the atonement has to do with how humanity comes back into relationship with God. And the doctrine of atonement that he pioneered or articulated was called recapitulation. So the idea is that you have the first Adam, and we're all the children of Adam, and the first Adam went wrong. He did not fulfill the end for which he was created, which is communion and obedience with God. He sets out on his own path and sets humanity on their own trajectory away from God, unfortunately. So Jesus is considered the second Adam. The Apostle Paul refers to him as such in a couple of his letters. And in the second Adam, Jesus, humanity goes right. It's a rewriting of history, both at the cosmic level and on the personal level when we put our faith in Christ. And so it's like Jesus rewrites our humanity and sets it back on the right path. So that's recapitulation. So in baptism particularly, Jesus identifies with humanity. He identifies with wayward Israel, which is the reason why the baptism happens at the Jordan River, because if you look at the Old Testament, when God delivered his people from Egypt in the Exodus narrative, after they are delivered from Egypt, they cross over the Jordan River. Actually, they wander in the wilderness for a period of time. Then they cross over the Jordan River and into the Promised Land. And so it's like God is communicating that Israel is getting a do-over through Jesus Christ, because Israel themselves, God's chosen people, did not fulfill God's mission for them. And here comes Jesus to pick up the ball that was dropped, so to speak, to do for Israel what they could not do for themselves. And in that baptism, not only is Jesus identifying with exiled Israel, but he's also identifying with wayward Adam. And so he's identifying with all of us, basically. And the idea is that Jesus takes our brokenness and sin upon himself, and in exchange, the virtue of Jesus is given to us. And with that virtue, we can recover our lost humanity. The next thing is the temptation worksheet. Well, the temptation is kind of the aftermath of the wilderness. The aftermath of the fall. Insofar as, if you look back in Genesis, God and humanity live in communion with one another in the garden. Humanity strikes out on their own. They're ejected from the garden into the wilderness. Jesus faces the temptation that humanity faced, but instead of capitulating to the devil's wily ways, Jesus overcomes, and he begins to win back all that was lost. And so that's what we see in the temptation narrative. It happens in the wilderness, and the wilderness is kind of the aftermath of the fall, humanity being ejected from the garden. So there's another way that Jesus is now identifying with humanity: baptism and temptation, and then finally wonders and mighty deeds, the miracles that Jesus performs. Now, a lot of times when people think about Jesus' miracles, if they're Christians, they're thinking, well, he's doing these miracles because he's the Son of God. He's divine. Of course he could do this. But really, that's not what the Bible is communicating. If you look at the Genesis narrative once again, God says to Adam, and through Adam to all humanity, be fruitful and multiply and exercise dominion, power over creation. And God endowed humanity to exercise power over creation. And And so that's actually what you see in Jesus, is that he's exercising this power over creation, his authority over nature, his authority over death. That authority was supposed to be ours, but we lost it in the fall, and we've recovered it in Jesus. So not only is Jesus revealing the gracious face of God, the true face of the Father, if you will, but Jesus is also revealing true humanity. And so in the wonders and mighty deeds that Jesus performs, Jesus is there also identifying with humanity. So in three ways, Jesus, again, is identifying with humanity through baptism, through temptation, through the wonders and mighty deeds. And that is the connecting thread that you could keep in mind as you go through the assignments this week and look at the instructions and all that kind of stuff. And that's it for now. My thing is at 10 minutes. That's long enough. And I will see you online in other ways, perhaps via email or through another video and what have you. And you have a good week.